So, welcome to Cooking at Home.
That's right.
Tonight we're making some tomato sauce with some spaghetti noodles. And I have a pretty good tomato sauce recipe. Many a maid has lost their resolve to my tomato sauce.
Okay, this must be good tomato sauce.
So, it's cold outside.
Yeah.
Well, we went to the store and there's actually some really nice, ripe, sort of heirloom style tomatoes. Basically what this is going to come down to is we kind of rough chop everything, throw it in a pot, cook it down, and there's nothing else to it than that. So I'm just taking out the core. You get your knife in there at a little angle and you sort of take a round wedge out of it to get the core, and then you're not wasting any other part of the tomato. And I can tell by how soft these are. They are nice and ripe. Which is, what, 2 or 3 days after Christmas right now?
Well, in South Texas.
Yeah, so the way we cut any of this stuff for this recipe doesn't matter. All we gotta do is cut it small enough that it doesn't take too long to cook, and then we're gonna puree it all up. Another one of the things that's important is getting a good variety of tomatoes. If you're making it from fresh tomatoes, which is the way I prefer to do it, you can use canned tomatoes, jarred tomatoes, stuff like that. And I got these little baby San Marzanos and some cherubs. And to me, this is one of the tricks of this dish. Doesn't matter exactly what tomatoes you use. You just want 2 or 3 or 4, maybe 5 different varieties. Some have more sweetness, some have more acidity, some have more of that kind of musty flavor that you get in tomatoes. And so I always use at least 3 varieties of tomatoes. And the ones I got today are all red tomatoes, but they don't even have to be red. They can be yellow and orange and all the other things. These ones probably don't even really need to be cut or processed in any way. I'm just gonna throw them in there. Once they get some heat on them, they'll bust open. That's our tomato base. The next most important flavor in this is onion. I prefer the sweet onions, especially the big giant Texas super juicy ones.
Yeah,
so you
for
can
sure.
get your hands on them. I'm just gonna cut the tip off, leave the root on, cut it in half. Makes it easy to peel the paper off. You always want to be moving 2 directions. So moving down, obviously, and then forward or toward yourself to make a clean cut. When I do it fast, you can't really see it, but I'll slow it down. So I'm making a motion like this. And so you see I'm pushing my knife forward with each cut. When it starts to get too tall, I just roll it over and start again on that side.
Genetically predisposed.
I've got the gene for burns your eyeballs. But this is how I
Smells fantastic.
this is how I learned how to do stuff with my eyes closed. Look at my face. Everything else I do is basically I can't see shit.
So this is how you learned how to do it blindfolded.
Yeah. Some celery is always nice. Very underrated ingredient, celery.
I agree.
I like to use mainly the leaves. From the inside part, the part that's kind of light green, yellow, kind of whitish.
Right.
Because it has the most flavor.
Comment below.
Call 911. Since the very first day I started cooking professionally, all the way up to today, they bloody get me. Like I said before, doesn't matter the size. That's enough celery. And now we need a couple of carrots. Got these babies right here. So I like to buy carrots with the greens because there's so much you can do with that and so much flavor to it. It's not going to go in our tomato sauce, but it's definitely not going to waste either.
Yeah.
It's great in salads, throw it in stews. It's awesome in stocks and soups, that kind of stuff.
We've used them in salads to great effect.
That's the main thing I use them for because it's so easy to do that. I don't mess with peeling carrots. I don't recommend that you mess with peeling carrots either. It's a waste of time.
And flavor.
Yeah, the peels have the most flavor and nutrition of the carrot. So it's kind of a total waste to peel them. The only other things I have left here, some herbs. I like to use the oregano or oregano and thyme, which is my favorite herb. I have some dried chipotles because I like a little bit of smokiness in my tomato sauce. And a little hum of spice, like chili spice.
Right.
And you definitely don't want it spicy.
Right.
You want like a little warmth of like chilies, I think is really nice. And as far as garlic goes on this dish, almost impossible to use too much. I'm using one whole head here.
Right.
So all in all, I probably used 3.5 pounds of tomatoes, 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds of onions, and then a little bit of garlic and celery, or I mean a little bit of carrots and celery, and that's it. So just give them a good old crush, same way we did last time. Just be very careful not to cut yourself. When you process the garlic, you don't really want the tips in there. So I just go through and nip the little tips off. So the sauce that we're making, this tomato sauce, is just a bar standard tomato sauce for anything you would ever want to use it for.
Right.
We're using it for spaghetti. You can use it for your chicken parmesan or your
You can.
lasagna or your whatever it is that you're going to do that needs some tomato sauce.
Yeah.
You could even throw chunks of meat in there and make a stew out of it, that kind of stuff. Yeah. And all the way up to the very end, when I'm going to add some butter to finish it, it's totally a vegan sauce.
Sure.
Or you can kind of group it up like this, and you have to be more careful because there's more to control. Just group it up and slice it as a big group like that, and you mow through it faster.
Yeah.
You get bigger chunks, less control, but this is all going to be stewed down and pureed.
Right. So it's really not a huge issue.
It's not an issue at all. So I got some dried chipotle peppers here. These are smoked red jalapenos and then dried. They got good smokiness to them. There are a few things you have to be careful of. They can get really spicy. And the tip where the stem is, not really edible. So you got to make sure and get that part off of there. And just rough chop them.
Not worried about seeds or anything like that.
No, I want the seeds. One of the other things you need to watch out for with dried chilies is sometimes they can grow mold on the inside, and you can't tell from the outside, can't see it from the outside. So when you cut into it, just take a look at what's in there. If you see any like white or green sort of moldy stuff, it's probably best just to throw that one out. So now we're going to take this, go over to the stove. We're going to kick it all the way to high. And we need to get some heat going in here. At the same time, building those layers of flavor. So every step of the way, we got to be seasoning. Now there's a lot of stuff in here.
Yeah.
We need to add a good solid amount of seasoning to get this going. I'm going to do like 3 big pinches of salt. Actually, I'm going to do even one more than that. Because I got to season by the volume of what's in here, not just what we see on the surface. And there's a lot of stuff in there. Same with the pepper. I got to keep in mind how much stuff I have in that pot. Not just what I can see on the surface there. I'm going to add some dried chili flakes. They also are not super spicy, but I do want a little hum.
They got a little bit of heat on them.
Spice to what we got going on here. As we start to absorb heat, everything's going to soften up a little bit and start pushing out moisture.
You're just breaking cell walls and releasing all the natural juices.
that juice is gonna be our sauce. Tomato sauce is boiling. You can see all the liquid that came out of it. There's still more to come. But like I said, I don't want to reduce it, so I got it turned all the way down to low. More herbs you put in your food, as long as they're appropriate to what you're making,
Right.
the more depth of flavor you get out of everything. And it's just an all-around good way to make good food. And I think one of the things, as Anthony Bourdain says, sort of separates home cooking from restaurant cooking is the use
of herbs
fresh
and
herbs.
spices, yeah.
Because there's just no sort of supplementing that flavor. So for time, there's sort of an easy way to do it, even though it's still rather tedious. You get a big stick like that, pull any ugly parts off, and then the rest of it, kind of grab the top where it's still kind of firm, and then just run your fingers against the way the leaves are growing, and you can just tug them right off in one go. And then all you got to do is go back up to the top and clean it up a little bit. Sometimes the top pulls off like that. That kind of makes it tough. But anywhere where the stem will break in your fingers, it's generally tender enough to eat. So you can just pull it off of there. Using dried herbs is definitely no supplement to fresh herbs. Now, better than nothing.
It's definitely better than nothing.
It still tastes good, but never ever as good as the fresh herb. Other than having to puree something, I would just throw the sticks right in there. It's no big deal at all. And if anybody gets upset about having to eat around a little thyme stem in a delicious stew, they're not good dinner guests.
Yeah.
So don't invite them next time. They can miss out. Oh yeah, baby. So I'm going to crank the heat back up. We just want to get it hot, and then the lid's going on. And you can see how much liquid has come out. And it's going to come out even more as it cooks. I think that's a good ratio of herbs there.
Yeah. That's
One thing we need to make sure of is just a little seasoning taste. Oh! All it is now, bring it up to a boil, lid goes on, cook it down. If you're not putting it in a pressure cooker, you need to just bring it up to a boil, then back down to a simmer, cover it, let it continue to simmer until everything's really soft, and then all we have to do is puree it. Fit the gasket in there. We gotta cook our spaghetti noodles for the tomato sauce. It's often that people sort of overestimate how much noodles you need, like proportion per person.
Right.
I generally do it based on the size pot that I'm cooking my water in. So I've got a pot of hot water over here. We need to make sure it gets all the way up to a boil. It's nearly there already, and I got it on full blast. We're gonna need to season this. And it needs to be seasoned basically as salty as the ocean, which at least for people around here should be pretty easy to
identify
with what that tastes like. If you're not, it's about 3% by weight salt to water. When you put your noodles in, don't just lay them in one big stack or they stick together. You need to kind of fan them out. It'll soften up quickly, already is. And you can kind of just push them down in the water. One thing we will need to do while this is cooking is make sure and keep it kind of stirred up. We don't want anything sticking to the bottom of the pan. We don't want noodles sticking to each other. So I'm just going to give them a little twist up, knock them around a little bit. We'll just cook down and ready to go.
That looks so good.
I got my old Wazzer here. Nice bit of kit.
Oh, it smells great, Dave.
Oh yeah, it does. So this is just a blender. You can use a normal blender. This makes it easier. I'm just going to puree everything up.
There's plenty of liquid in the vegetables.
Yeah, you don't need any extra liquid when you do it right. There you go.
Alright, let's try some of this. Oh, that's so
A little
good.
bit of salt. A little bit of pepper. You get the herbs. Of course, the tomatoes are nice and rich. Some sweetness from the onions and carrots.
You get a good heat.
And there's a nice little hummus spice to it, and that's the way I like it. A little bit smoky from the chipotle peppers.
That's so
ready to go.
pretty.
And still, this is still totally vegan. We haven't put any sort of meat products in there at all. There's eggs in these noodles, and we're gonna finish everything with butter. So we can at least say it's vegetarian.
If you want to, yeah.
So what we're gonna be looking for is you don't want to overcook your pasta noodles. It's a terrible thing to do to pasta. Most people think if you throw it against the fridge and it sticks to the fridge, right, that it's done.
Well, that actually means it's overcooked.
At that point, it's way overcooked. So here's one of the things I look for. I don't know if you can see this on camera. In the very center of that noodle, you can see it's still dry and hard. It hasn't hydrated yet.
Yeah.
And it kind of snaps apart. And once it's cool, it holds its shape. Obviously, it's not ready yet. Just back in the pot. Tricks that I do with this dish is just buy some ground pork, some ground beef. I don't really care for ground turkey, but if that's your thing, that's fine. And brown it up in a pan and just hold it off to the side with everything else. And when I start working everything in the pan to finish to go onto the plate, you start with your ground meat, a little sauce, your noodles in, toss it up, finish with butter. It's delicious. A little ragu.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Noodles are done. How do I know? I bite into them, and there's a little bit of chew left in them. They're seasoned nicely. I'm going to drain them off. Right into the colander. I'm just going to cool it down under some cold water. Stop the cooking. We're going to finish everything off in a saute pan, and it goes pretty quick. We have our sauce ready. We have our noodles ready. I've got a little bit of pasta water on standby. All we need to do is get this pan hot, warm-ish, enough to kind of bring the sauce back to a boil.
Right.
And then we add the noodles to that. So I got this pan up to high. It's getting hot quick. I'm going to take a good old couple of ladles of my sauce here. So I'm making this portion for 2. That's probably about 8 to 10 fluid ounces of sauce there. We're going to let this boil for just a second. Get good and hot. Seasoning's done. It's got all the flavors that we want. All we got to do is put everything together and put it on a plate. So that's hot now. Good old double portion of noodles. Just a little bit more, I think. Now there's one thing to be a little bit careful of here, and that's don't let your noodles stick to the bottom of the pan and burn, because that's not good eats. And we spent all this time and effort making this beautiful sauce, doing the noodles properly. It'd be a tragedy to just burn it in the last like 60 seconds of cooking.
Right.
Now we got the noodles in there. We're just going to wait for them to get hot. We're also going to finish off with some butter. This is just some whole butter. I got it cut into little chunks so it melts in faster. We're going to sort of emulsify it into everything to finish it off here. About time to do that. Don't be scared of using butter. Makes everything better. Turn the heat off. I just want to let this butter sort of work in. I don't want it to separate and have a little puddle of grease on top of everything we're eating. So you got to be sort of gentle about how fast and hard you work it into there. We're just about there, Audie. Butter's gone. There's a little bit there.
Yeah.
Everything's got a nice sheen to it from the butter. Everything's got a nice coating of sauce to it. Let's plate that up. What do you say?
That sounds great.
Got a couple of plates here.
Right now.
Nice big old scoop. Right down on the plate. Nice big old scoop right down on the plate. It doesn't need Parmesan cheese and like garlic bread or anything. I mean, there's plenty of garlic in there.
Yeah.
It's rich and unctuous
Yeah.
and filling. Warms you up on the inside on a cold day. That's homemade spaghetti, tomato sauce from scratch, some properly cooked pasta noodles.
Yes, it is.
Put together in no time.
That's right.
Have a go yourself. Enjoy it. We're cooking at home.
We're cooking
I'm
at-
Dave. That's Audie.
That's right.
Share our videos with your friends if you enjoy them. Please. In our world, it's totally okay to slurp noodles. It's kind of a compliment going on.
A little
enjoying
bit,
this stuff.
yeah. It's so good.
Right on.